Hi, and welcome to this edition of The Buzz, a show that we tape here at Abington's Cable TV studio in the Abington Middle High School. My name is Shawn Reilly, and I am your host. And for this edition, we're going to do something a little different. Speaking with our athletic director, Peter Serino, he asked me if we could spend some time trying to give him the opportunity to answer a lot of frequently asked questions about the sports programs at Abington High School, the MIA in general, how different sports have different requirements, or just different things that factor into a lot of decisions that are made, how we work with the boosters and how the boosters work with us, parents, coaches, all the different things. So I want to welcome Peter Serino, our athletic director, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. I know you helped and gave us a bunch of lists of questions that you have heard a lot. And I know at the beginning of each season, you routinely have a meeting at the auditorium, I believe, right, with the parents and coaches and players, where you try to lay out a lot of this information. But we thought that this cable show might be another way to kind of get that information out there beyond just the parents and players, but sometimes just fans in the stands who have questions about how do they do that or why do they do that.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And I very much appreciate the opportunity. As you mentioned, at the start of the school year in August, we have a night where we do our best to explain things and we share things out. And the biggest thing I want people to understand is there's always a why behind the decision we make. And I don't expect everybody to fully understand the why or fully agree with everything. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts. But to know that there is a why and understand the why at some point. So if I encourage people to ask, why do we do it this way? Why is this way? I can always provide the why. I can't guarantee that you're going to love the answer, it's going to make sense to you, but there is a why behind everything that we do, and some of it is a local why, an Abington decision, and some of it is because we're a member of the South Shore League or a member of the MIA. If we want to be that member, we have to do things a certain way because there are benefits.
Well, I'm glad you just said that, because I was going to say some of those decisions and whys are not coming from you directly. Some of them are, but some of them are above us. They're league-wide or they're MIA-wide. So let's start first. Let's look high. The MIAA, Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association, if you could tell us a little bit about that, and then what about our league, South Shore League, and there's a Tobin division and a Sullivan division, and where does Abington High School fit into that whole hierarchy?
Yeah, so if you start at the big picture, we're a member of the MIA, which is the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association, which the vast majority of high schools in Massachusetts are members of. It's over 350 schools, and that's our governing body. So our membership with the MIA provides a number of benefits. I think the biggest one that you see is the postseason tournament experience. So our teams have the opportunity to earn their way to participate in a postseason tournament that's run by the MIA. And in order to participate in the postseason tournaments, you have to be a member. And in order to be a member in good standing, there's a set of rules. There's about 100 rules that we agree that we will hold our student athletes in our school district accountable to. So we at the school, so the principal, myself, we're required to ensure that our school is adhering to the rules and regulations of the MIA. And in return, the biggest benefit we get is the postseason tournament, but there are other benefits, some educational opportunities for our students, and pretty much the uniformity of high school athletics in Massachusetts, the MIA provides that. As the member, we kind of agree to kind of follow their rules. And then below that, there's the South Shore League. So the South Shore League is 10 schools. Geographically speaking, it's along the South Shore, but it's pretty far-reaching. It's one of the more diverse leagues in the state, in my opinion. We range from Randolph up on the northernmost all the way down to Mashpee, over the bridge down the Cape. And then there's a sprinkling of schools in between. And there are a wide range of communities. You have, the Abington, Rockland, East Bridgewaters, but then you go down and you have Carver, Middleborough, and then there's Mashpee. Then you have the Coassets and the Norwells. So membership of that league provides us a consistent schedule. So we have our league schedule, which is the vast majority of our games. And then also the ability for other benefits of the league, like competing for a league championship, having league all-stars. And again, the continued uniformity and equity amongst schools that we're competing against, like schools that have like situations and like rules. And then further within the South Shore League, because our league is so diverse, we have schools with 800 or 900 kids down to Hull has about 200 kids now.
Really?
So we split the league, and that's new probably in the last about 12 to 15 years, into two divisions, which originally it was the large and the small, but they were later renamed after some longtime members of the league. The Sullivan division, which is the large, which is named after Joe Sullivan, who was a longtime Hull athletic director, coach, guidance counselor, and serves as the league secretary now. And the Tobin division, which are the smaller schools, which is named after Abington's own Don Tobin, who was an athletic director, coach, and also served as the South Shore League secretary for a number of years. And Abington, for most of our sports, falls in the Tobin division. We're one of the larger small schools. So we fall right in the middle. Our annual enrollment is usually just over 500. So the way the schedule breaks down for most sports is you play your side, so the most similar schools, twice, and then the other schools once.
The larger schools?
The larger schools. It doesn't work that way for every sport, because some sports, like a track or cross country, there are less games, so you're only playing each other once, football, and so forth. And as long as there are 8 schools that offer the sport, we split into 2 divisions, and there's a champion in each division. And the reason for that is fairness and opportunity for the kids to compete for championships, that you're not all of a sudden asking a school of 300-400 kids to win a league championship. You have to be a school that's twice your size.
And that goes to, so you mentioned the South Shore League is comprised of a bunch of teams that are geographically on the South Shore in Mashpee. But there's other teams in the South Shore that are not in the South Shore League, like the Duxbury, like Cohasset, like Whitman-Hanson, like Pembroke. They're just in different leagues.
Yep,
right?
So Cohasset is in South Shore League, but the other schools that you mentioned are in the Patriot League. So that's the 2 main leagues along the Route 3 corridor, the South Shore League and the Patriot League. So they're a different collection. We still play a lot of them in non-league games, but we're able to pick and choose which teams we play because they're much larger, and some of our teams can certainly compete against them, and we're able to go and do that. But others, it just wouldn't make sense, so we can go play schools that make sense.
So down in southeastern Massachusetts, for most sports, we have the South Shore League, which has a large school, small school, and we have the Patriot League, which is the larger group of South Shore schools, and they also have a large and small school league. But then there's one other twist to this that a lot of times it's difficult for us to all follow. The MIA in all the high schools, not only do they set leagues, but there's also divisions that go across the state. Division 1 through, sometimes it's 7 divisions, sometimes it's 8 divisions, depending on the sport, depending on the year. That's all set up also by population of the schools, is that right?
Correct. It's a little more complicated than just your strict enrollment. Years ago, it was just your strict enrollment, and it's evolved over time. So every 2 years right now, they realign. And your alignment is based off of your enrollment using what they call a competitive equity tool. So there's a CEM, competitive equity multiplier. So it takes your raw total enrollment of students in grades 9 through 12, and then there are certain factors that can reduce that. And different schools have different reductions. So your high needs population, your free and reduced, your transient population, students who are coming and going. So there's a number of factors that factor into that get you your enrollment number. And then based off of that, they split it up into divisions based off of how many schools offer the sport. So for the most part, there's 4 or 5 divisions in sports. And for the most part, Abington falls in Division 4. There are exceptions. Football, for example, has 8 divisions, and football is in Division 6. Basketball ends up having to play up in Division 3. And then, track, cross country, they're down Division 5, Division 6, depending upon the year is kind of how things go. But that is there's 2 main factors: your enrollment with your competitive equity multiplier, and then how many schools offer the specific sport. So hockey is not as widely offered, so there's only 4 divisions, and our hockey team plays in Division 4, the lowest division in the state. Basketball, the same season, we're pulling from the same population. They're asked to play in Division 3, which is right in the middle. There's 5 divisions in basketball. So in hockey, they're playing in the lowest, and in basketball, their classmate right next to them is playing in the middle division with 2 divisions below them. And the reason for that is there are more small schools that offer basketball, so the basketball team plays against larger schools when it gets to the postseason.
Got it. And as you said, this is recalculated every 2 or 3 years because populations change. And now, one thing we've always heard through the years is do private schools and Catholic schools get treated the same way as public schools?
So when it comes to the MIA, those are some of the multipliers. They can be asked to move up.
Okay.
So a private school is automatically moved up one division, and then there is an appeals process. So where you get aligned, usually it comes out, and then there's 1 month for school to review and make a decision to appeal to go down to a different division based on certain factors. And there's a committee of athletic directors and principals from the member schools of the MIA that hear. The initial one is just, you fill out information and it's approved or denied. And then if you're denied, you have an opportunity to present. They give you 2.5 minutes to present in front of a committee to state your case, and then it's approved or denied, and then that's where you land for that cycle, which right now is 2 years.
So you had mentioned how the MIA has certain rules and restrictions and regulations that basically cover all of the high schools, the 350 or so high schools that are in the MIA. There's a few high schools that are not in it for different reasons, like private schools or whatever. But for the folks at home, some of those rules could be different from the local rules. Like MIA has its own rules for alcohol and drugs for student athletes. And it only applies to student athletes because the MIA only has jurisdiction on student athletes. Same thing for when you can start practices, for a season. And if you're absent for school, whether you can practice or play, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that different schools may have policies, but the MIA has policies that apply everywhere.
Yep, so the MIA sets what we call the minimum standard.
Okay.
So you have to meet the minimum standard, and then schools can certainly go above and beyond. So academically speaking, the MIA says you have to pass the equivalent of 4 English classes, 4 full-time English classes. And different schools have different schedules. Some schools, they have block scheduling and you're only taking 4 classes, so you got to pass them. Other schools, like in Abington, we have a 7-period day, so kids can take 7 classes. So just passing 4 doesn't really seem like a good standard. So
Sorry, you said passing 4 English classes. Is that
the
what you meant?
equivalent of 4 English
okay.
classes. So 4 classes that meet as frequently as an English class. So
see.
some schools have a class that might only meet once a week, and that doesn't count towards it. So in Abington, because you could take up to 7 classes, most students take 6 or 7. Our standard is 5, so you have to be passing 5 classes, while the MIA is only 4. And that can vary school to school. And there are certain things that you can always be more strict than the MIA, but you can never go below the MIA standard.
And there has been some studies I'm aware of that student athletes or students that are involved in extracurricular activities like drama and band and things tend to do, on the average, a little bit better academically because they're basically required to not only hit those minimum standards, but to balance their time, to work on, they have a lot of requirements. They got to go to school, do their homework, go to practice, sometimes have a part-time job, and that kind of makes kids focus. So there is, I think, actually demonstrated benefits to that. But there's a lot of pressure on kids too to get that done. And I know there's a lot of things where coaches and your office helps out whenever possible. Let's go on a couple more things. Let me talk one more question with the MIA. Throughout the regular season, the home team kind of runs the show. You're the site director. You choose the ticket prices, the high school. And eventually when you get to playoffs, the MIA kind of takes over, right? Explain how that goes.
Yeah, so during the regular season, the schools are in charge of the site. They get control over the ticket prices. And there are certain standards that you're supposed to adhere to, but ultimately the schools get to make the decisions. And there's a set of norms that the MIA provides that everybody, in an ideal world, follows, but ultimately the school makes the decision. So ticket prices is a great example.
Yeah.
In Abington, we haven't raised our ticket prices since they were set originally, I think. We're still $3 for students and senior citizens and $5 for adults. Other schools now are $5 for students. Some are up to 8, some are 10. And it varies. How you purchase your ticket can vary school to school. In Abington, some of the feedback we've got from our community is they like they like the cash, so we're sticking there. Other schools don't take cash, and it's through different payment apps and different things.
That's what GoFan is, that online ticket purchase thing that a lot of schools and the MIA requires at playoffs, right?
Exactly. So when we get to the certain rounds of the playoffs, the MIA takes over. So if you show up to the game, it looks like we're still running it, but this is one of those things that as a member, we agree. So typically the round of 16, there are some sports it's the round of 8, but typically at the round of 16, the MIA takes over and they tell you this is what you're charging and this is how you're collecting the money. And now that's through GoFan. So they say the ticket is $10 for adults, but you can't buy a $10 ticket because there's a service fee and it's really $11.50. And we have zero control over that. And we agree if our team earns the right to host that game by their regular season standing and their power rating. But if we don't agree or we demonstrate that we can't adhere to the MI standards, we can lose the ability to host that game. So if we're not using the app, if we're not charging correctly, the MIA could, I hope that it would never happen, but they could say, I know you earned the right to host this game, but you can't. And we have seen that in other communities where the venue doesn't meet the MIA standards. It doesn't hold enough people. They don't think it's the playing surface is good enough.
Right.
Whatever it may be. And then the MIA says, even though you earn the right to this home game, you're going to move that. And that has happened to Abington in the past.
Yeah.
I think it was 2009. They earned the right to host a very big basketball game, but the MIA, this is before I was athletic director, said, we're not allowing you to host. And they had to play a home game at Bridgewater Raynham. So we have lived that, and that's one of the reasons that we do our best to adhere to the MIA standards. So when our teams do earn that ability to host a game, we host a game, and that is some of that is field conditions too with our outdoor sports.
Right.
You know, in the fall it comes up most often with football because they play on a natural grass surface. So we need to do our due diligence throughout the season to make sure that that surface is in good condition come November. If our team is fortunate to earn the right to host a game, we'd like to be able to host it rather than them say, you know what, we can't because
it's a mud pit.
It's a mud pit, and it's because it's cold, you don't have grass, and all these so forth. So it's a long-winded answer as to why we do our best to adhere to the MIA standards, and that they do have say when it gets to the postseason. Ultimately, it's their game that we are running on behalf of them.
All right, let me move on to a couple things, and I might be bouncing around here, and feel free to throw in whatever you want. Talk to us about there's rules for student athletes about being tardy, whether you can go to practice or play, or being absent, whether you can go to practice or play. What are those rules?
Yeah, so they're student athletes first and foremost, so the student piece is very important. So you have to come to school to participate in practice or a game. And on a typical school day, that means they have to be to school by 7:45. So school day starts at 7:25, so it does give them a 20-minute leeway. Now, if they're late 15 times in a term, they can lose the ability to play, but there's 45 days in a term. We've got bigger issues if that's the case.
Yeah.
So it does account for that, but if you're late after 7:45 for an unexcused reason, you can't participate that day. And some of the excuses are a doctor's appointment, a dentist appointment, a funeral, things like that. We do require documentation, but then you can go and play. And
Can mom and dad just write a note saying, sorry, we had family visiting, and we're going to be late today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
It has to be an approved absence by the administration.
The standards.
Yep, there are standards, and those are kind of the examples are outlined in our handbook. There are college visits, military. If a student's going to the military and they have to meet with someone, those are all excused. And we encourage people, if you know you're going to be late, you know you're going to be absent, reach out. Usually it's me and our assistant principal, Ms. Casey. Send us an email, and we can work with you. And there's obviously the obvious ones that I just mentioned, but we also understand that things come up. A car doesn't start. A parent works overnight and gets stuck at work, and the high school sibling has to get the younger sibling on the bus. We work with people, provided it's there, but we also have to uphold the standard there. And then on Wave Week Wednesdays, it's an hour later because school starts an hour later.
Because you also can't treat student athletes different than non-student athletes.
Yep.
Yeah,
and those are the standards for participation in all of our extracurricular activities, not just sports.
eighth graders can sometimes play high school athletics and sometimes not. When does that happen?
Yeah, so again, this goes to the MIA. So the MIA says your school, so Abington High School is grades 9 through 12, can participate. Now, other towns, they have a middle high school, but it's one school. So East Bridgewater, for example, they're grades 7 through 12 in one school with one principal.
Really?
So their students, grades 7 through 12, are all eligible to participate on the high school team. But because Abington High School is only grades 9 through 12, those are the only students who can participate. Now, there is a process through the MIA where you could apply for an 8th grade waiver to allow 8th graders to participate. Now, in order for them to participate, they have to participate at the lowest level you offer that sport. So if you offer a freshman team, they have to participate as freshmen. If you offer JV, and that's the lowest level, if there's no freshmen, they can play JV. If you only offer a varsity sport, then they can play varsity. So for us, it can be a little confusing on many fronts. First, we're one building, so that confuses people. Everybody's in the same building. Why can't they do it? But we have 2 separate principals, and we're considered 2 separate schools. The community, when they built this building, was very clear that that's what they wanted. So we are 2 separate schools. And then when 8th graders do participate, some sports can have it. So right now we have 8th graders participating in girls soccer because there has to be a need. So in girls soccer, we didn't have enough students in 9 through 12 to fill out the JV team. So if we didn't use 8th graders, we probably would have had to cut some kids and run a varsity team only. Boys soccer, we have a JV and a varsity team also, but no 8th graders because we had enough boys in grades 9 through 12 to fill the 2 rosters.
Right.
And when we apply for the waiver, we have to provide evidence of the numbers and how all that works. And it has to get approved by the MIA. So there's the district athletic committee that provides approval for that. So we typically have our informational meetings a little early, about 6 to 8 weeks before the season, to gauge interest in grades 9 through 12. And then we use that information to apply for the waiver. And sometimes we hear within a week or 2, and sometimes it takes a couple months. But we're kind of at the mercy of that committee.
Yeah.
And then once we hear, we can have them sign up and participate.
And there, like you said, if you don't have enough high school kids to field a JV team, you might not have any interest from 8th graders anyhow. Right? You kind of have to check all the cups on the table, whatever, and see what works.
And you can never cut a high school student in favor of a 8th grader.
Yep.
So the high school student gets preference. Now, there are certainly instances where there's a freshman team and we only have 6 freshmen and we need 12, but there's too many sophomores for a JV team. You could cut a sophomore because that sophomore is not eligible to play on the freshman team,
right,
and we're trying to fill it. The idea behind it is the 8th graders, by allowing them to participate, they supplement a roster that allows more high school kids to have a good experience and stay engaged. So you don't have to cut. You can keep that extra
right
team. Or now you have a full roster, so you can actually run a practice instead of a basketball team with 7 kids. Well, if we can bring on those 5 8th graders, now we have a full team.
But if you have a 6'6" 8th grader, he's not going to play varsity basketball as much as he really wants to, as much as the coach might want you to. He's got to play in the freshman level if there is a freshman.
Correct, at the lowest level we have offered. And there are some sports where the lowest level we offer is varsity, so cross country, track and field. And the other thing that's important is once that 8th grader is on a team, be it the freshman team, JV team, varsity team, they are treated as an equal. So there is no guarantee that a high school student gets playing time over an 8th grader. Once they're on the team, everybody is treated the same. And if they earn more playing time than somebody in a grade above them, then they earn more playing time.
And we've had some very successful 8th graders who have made their mark at Abington on junior varsity team, especially in the track area. It's been fantastic. It gives those kids an opportunity, whereas they don't have that that team opportunity at the 8th grade level. So let's deal with uniforms. There's always a question about how come name a team. The boys basketball team got new uniforms, but the baseball team didn't. Or the hockey team just got new gear, but football have been wearing the same shirts for the last 7 years, or whatever the thing is. Who makes those decisions when you change, get new uniforms? How's that proceed?
Yeah, so ultimately I make recommendations, and those decisions I say ultimately fall on me, but we have a process. So typically we shoot for 5 years. So we have a uniform rotation. So I can tell you, since I started and a little bit before I started, every year a team got a new uniform. And our goal is every 5 years to update the uniform. Now, there are certain issues that come up with budget issues, or we might drop a team or add a new team, where it might end up being 6 years, it might end up being 4 years, but 5 is kind of what we target. And in order to do that, it's usually about 2 to 3 teams a year that we try and update. Now, the one exception I will say is football. They don't get new uniforms. So this is, I've been doing this well over a decade. We've bought them one uniform, and the uniform we had before that, they had for well over a decade. And the primary reason for that is cost. There's a significant cost to football uniforms, and you need so many of them because it's one of the larger sports. We're very fortunate that, credit to our football coaches, past and present, and our football families, they take care of their uniforms, they account for them, and we get a lot of life out of them. But every other sport, typically 5 years is kind of what we shoot for, and hopefully we can stick to
Who
that.
launders the uniforms?
So during the season, our families, we ask them to take care of them. And then in the off season, we typically handle that in-house. So that's a combination of me. Some of our coaches certainly help out. They take it home and they wash them and organize them. And ultimately, Alicia Reed, our athletic trainer, does the lion's share of it. She's great. She does a lot of organization. And one of the things that some people are aware of, some people aren't, is there's an opportunity, if it fits in a student's schedule, to intern with Miss Reed, our athletic trainer. And I've had interns as well, where you can kind of get to see what the jobs are like, and they do some tasks. And one of the things that the intern sometimes will help with is inventory and organizing the uniforms, the accounting of them, and also, the washing and storing of them and so forth.
So if there is a student who's interested in interning, either with the athletic director's office or the athletic trainer's office, they should just approach you and ask?
Yeah,
and see how it
absolutely.
works
They
out?
can reach out to me. Obviously, it needs to fit in their schedule. They can't, skip out on math class or English class to come do this. But typically, once students have their schedule, if they have a learning center, and instead of a learning center, they'd like to do this, it's an opportunity for them. Now, it obviously needs to align with my schedule if it's working with me, or Miss Reed's if it's working with her. But typically, in a semester, there's a couple of kids that usually it works for, and we kind of tailor the experience to them. So I know Miss Reed currently has 2 students who are kind of learning the ins and outs of athletic training, and she does a great job. They learn some of the medical side of things, how the body works, how to do some rehab, but then also the realities of the job. Yesterday, they were helping clean water coolers, which, if we're giving kids water, we got to clean the coolers every day. So for some of the kids, it's kind of eye-opening, what they do. I remember I had an intern last year, and we had to clean a storage closet, and they were like, "What? What?" Like, yeah, we gotta dust it out, we gotta sweep it out, and we're finding things that are old and whatever. And they're like, "I had no idea that you did this." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what we do." So it's a great experience for kids to kind of learn kind of the ins and outs.
Before we take the break, I also, related to uniforms, really for fan uniforms, let's call it Green Wave gear and super fan T-shirts. Who puts that out there? Where does that come from, and who gets the revenue and all?
Yeah, great question. So some of our teams will do individual fundraisers that the kind of coach oversees. We try and limit that to 1 or 2 things because we want the focus to be on playing. But we also have a school store with a business class where kids kind of learn the ins and outs of a business, and oftentimes their assignment is to design a T-shirt or whatever, and they do a Superfan T-shirt for their team. So the Superfan T-shirt is one of the most popular things. People say, how come this team has it or that team doesn't? That's actually a student doing the work as part of their business class. They design it. They have to calculate the cost. And some students, part of the class is, well, what's the goal of this? And, if you're running a business or your promotions, is it, we want to promote it, so we're willing to, maybe the profit margin's a little bit lower, or, hey, no, we're trying to make money through this, so the cost is higher, and they're looking for a larger profit margin. So that's actually something that they do with Miss Howell, our business teacher, and they actually do it start to finish, from coming up with the idea, doing the calculations of, inventory, how do we order, how do we do this, are we pre-ordering, or are we just buying X amount to sell? And then they actually now they buy the blank T-shirts and they print them. They screen them in-house in the school, and then they have to go through the delivery process and all that. So, admittedly, it is different for every team, but it's a great learning experience for the kids. And yeah, sometimes it doesn't go great because they're high school students attempting to run a business, and they learn it. But it's a great experience for these kids to learn the process, start to finish.
I did not know that. I did not know it was part of the business classes that were kind of, it's a great hands-on learning experience. And so anyone who's out there wearing those Superfan T-shirts, want to thank you for supporting our business classes and all the things that the kids do generate. We're going to take a quick break and come back with a lot more things that we want to throw at Peter and see if we can get some more information out there. So take a run to the refrigerator and get right back here in just about 60 seconds, and we'll come back with more of The Buzz. Hey, Green Wave Nation, one big reminder again of this year's Green Wave Boosters door-to-door drive is going to be held Sunday, October 19th. Please mark the calendar right now. Student athletes are going to be visiting each and every neighborhood, knocking on doors between the hours of 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. They're high school kids, they're teenagers, they're trying, please help them out, please be respectful. They're asking for any donation of any amount to support the Green Wave Boosters. This is always the #1 most important Boosters fundraiser every year, the door-to-door drive, Sunday, October 19th. If you're not home, they'll leave an envelope in your door. If you want to mail something, it's P.O. Box 2140, Abington Green Wave Boosters, P.O. Box 2140, Abington. You can send a donation anytime, but October 19th is the big day this year. Please, please, please look for the kids in your neighborhoods, and if you want to help out, please talk to anyone in the Green Wave Boosters. The more the merrier, but thank you for supporting the Green Wave Boosters and the kids in Abington. All right, we're back at The Buzz here, talking with Peter Serino, our athletic director, trying to answer a lot of frequently asked questions, and there are a lot of questions, and we're trying to hit as many as we can. So, Peter, let me get right back to you. Let's talk about preseason and during the season, communication, getting information out there. I mean, obviously, a lot of the games are on cable. People can watch it on cable. There's your Twitter account, where at Abington AD on X, I guess it is now, or Twitter, where you send out a lot of information there. How can parents learn or fans learn more about game schedules or just game changes or just general information?
Great. So I'll start with probably the most important things people are looking for is schedules.
Yeah.
So arbiterlive.com is the best place to go. You can go there, go to Abington High School's page. It has all of our team schedules, and there's also the ability to sign up for alerts.
So let's spell that. Wait a minute. arbiterlive.com. arbiterlive.com. Sorry, go ahead.
Correct. And then you search Abington, our school pops up. You can see all of our team schedules. The soccer team, varsity, JV, whatever we offer is there. And you also have the ability to sign up for alerts. So these alerts, every time a game is changed, you will get an alert for however you choose to get it. It can be a text message to your phone, it can be an email, whatever you're looking for, you'll get an alert. So it's a great place to go. You can sign up for every team or just the team that your child.
Anybody can do this. You don't have to be a parent or a student.
Correct. That's open to anyone, and that is the place to get our schedules. There are other websites that we have zero control over. Max Preps is a big one. We don't have anything to do with that. They pull data from different places and it ends up there, but we have no control of that. So stick to Arbiter Live. Arbiter does have an app. The app is slowly getting up to speed, but it still has some wrinkles.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to stick with Arbiter Live.
And you can look at any school on Arbiter Live,
correct.
Not just Abington.
Yep,
right?
and it has all of the scores are up there, and athletic directors are required to update our scores on Arbiter. So if you're trying to find information on scores or whatever, that's the place to go. That's going to be accurate and up to date. And as you mentioned on Twitter, that's kind of where we make our announcements, different things. We will communicate scores on that. We do final scores as the coaches provide them to me. Obviously, I'm not at every game, but I do my best as soon as I hear from a coach to put that information out there. But sometimes the coach is a little slow getting it to me, so I can't put it out there because I don't necessarily know what it is. And then also we share game changes on there and other information about upcoming events as we go. And then the coaches communicate with their teams. So in terms of communication per team, there will be a preseason meeting with the parents, that the coach kind of spells things out and gives a general plan for the year and how things are going to work, how they should reach out to the coach and so forth. But during the season, we intentionally communicate with the kids. Ultimately, it's educational athletics, and we're trying to teach the kids a lot. And yes, it's sport-driven, and we're trying to compete and win, but one of the biggest things that students learn through participating in sports is time management and communication and responsibility and accountability. So if there's a practice change, we don't tell the parents. We tell the kids. We tell the parents how we're going to communicate. I'm going to tell your kids this. And then it's on the kids. And there's always a growing pain where a student didn't check their email and their coach communicates through email, or their coach communicates through an app. And coaches communicate in different manners. And again, I think that's a great thing, because I think in the real world, there's so many different communication platforms that you need to be well versed in. You could work one job that uses this platform, another uses another, and your family uses a different one. So for kids to understand and know, in this season, my coach communicates this way, my coach communicates this way, is a very valuable lesson, and kids kind of learn through that.
But it can be frustrating for parents too sometimes, when all of a sudden, junior's practice schedule gets changed. Junior didn't tell mom and dad. Junior, whether or not he got that text or email, the player needs to inform the parents if there's a need to be picked up or dropped off, or going to be late for dinner, whatever it is. When you said we intentionally don't notify the parents, it's not because we're hiding it from the parents. I think you're trying to build responsibility at a high school level for each and every kid who plays sports at Abington High School.
Yeah, absolutely. And our coaches are aware of a lot of them are parents themselves, and there are multiple kids, and they look at all the practice schedules. How do we get people here? We're not making a lot of changes. There are occasionally things that come up with a game rescheduled and a practice time shifts. And our coaches do provide the families the practice schedule for the entire season towards the beginning of the year. So they have it, and then they can work around it. And then as adjustments come up, hey, the bus time got pushed back or it got pushed up. Those are communicated directly to the kids.
So let me ask you a question about field conditions. When it pours, when do you make decisions like, when you're not going to play a memorial field, a grass field, or when you are going to still play on the turf fields, because it snowed or rained hard or whatever? Those can be difficult decisions. You're looking at the weather forecasters and the time of the game. How does that all happen?
There's so many factors that go into it that even if I spend a couple minutes explaining it, I'm going to miss some.
Yeah.
So obviously the safety of the kids is number one. Can we do this safely as to what we're doing? And a lot of that is, we're going off of the best information we have. Is it just going to be rain, or is there going to be lightning?
Right.
And that's a different factor. And then what is the playing surface, where we're at, and also where are we in the season? Are we early in the season where if we play, we could probably get it in, but we're going to destroy the field, and then it's going to be less safe the rest of the year? Or is it later in the year, like in the spring in particular, later in the year where the grass is growing more and we're okay?
Well, you might have more time later in the season to make up a game.
Correct. Right. Yeah, and then the school we're playing, travel comes into play.
Yeah.
Is it Rockland, who's right next door, and hey, if it gets rained out, it's not that big of a deal? Or is it Mashpee?
Or is it Nantucket?
Exactly. So we're guessing that. And then also the official availability. Sometimes we got to push the limits with the weather, because there aren't a lot of officials now, and rescheduling games is challenging. So do we play in the rain, or do we lose the game?
That's true. So let's take a football game. Moving a Friday night football game because of a threat of heavy rain to a Saturday means you got to change the buses, you got to change the referees, you got to maybe reschedule something that was out on the field. It's not just sending out a notice.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the impacts are beyond our athletic community at the high school, because our facilities in town are shared, and the schedules are built off of, football, for example, you brought up. Well, the high school team typically plays on Friday nights. Well, on Saturdays, there are events at Memorial Field, whether it's a youth football. The band has an all-day thing this fall.
Yep.
There's Oktoberfest down there. There's fall baseball now that we have a second baseball field that can still be used. There's all kinds of things that go on, and for us to make a move, it impacts the community. And we also need to understand we have another community that's involved in this, and it might be the obvious move to Saturday, but that community might have a very large, important event to them on Saturday, so we can't move it. So there's all kinds of factors that come into play, and it's not as simple as should we play, should we not. There's those are just some of the situations.
It's like the decision where the superintendent has to determine whether or not to open school because there's a pending snowstorm. There's a lot of factors. But let me keep bouncing around. Earlier in the previous segment we mentioned Alicia Reed. She is the athletic trainer at Abington High School. She is a godsend. Well, you tell me about it. She at every game, every home game. And what does she do?
So she does everything that you could imagine, and that's the great thing about Alicia and about high school athletic trainers. If you go to a college or a professional sports team, there's an army of athletic trainers, and some focus on this and some focus on that. She does it all. From, I mentioned cleaning the water jugs, to if a student has a serious injury, she's the lead person that handles their care and coordinates our response and so forth. There's the planning. She's very involved in our emergency action planning and reviewing that with coaches and going through first aid training with our coaches. And then caring for the students. And caring for the students, I think the obvious that people see is when they get hurt in a game. She's the first one out there and does what needs to be done. But she does a lot of rehab after injury. She does a lot of prehab in handling those things. And she makes sure that our kids are healthy and safe, first and foremost, and then have an enjoyable experience as we go. So she's here every day. After school, she usually starts during the school day. She comes in, gets everything set, and then her office from 2 to 3 is usually, it's chaos. It's a great place to be because there's a lot of activity, but kids are getting their treatment, getting prepared for practices, and then on practice day, she bounces around from sport to sport. Obviously prioritizes some of the more high collision, high impact sports. So in the fall right now, football on days where there's hitting, she spends a lot of time there. In the spring, it's boys lacrosse usually. And then game wise, when there are games, she's at games. But obviously there are days where we have multiple games going at the same time. So her and I kind of coordinate and prioritize where does she need to be. And a lot of that is based off of the sport and the significance of the injuries.
You know what I really noticed since she came on board? It used to always be if you got hurt in a sport, you shook it off. You put a little mud on it, you kept playing, you didn't tell the coach, I don't want to be taken out of the game. And when Alicia would be down there, just when she first started, if someone got hurt, they wouldn't walk to her. They'd go to the bench, get a drink of water, whatever it is. Then they kind of learned about what Alicia can do for them and how she treats them and the trust now they have in him. You watch any game, if someone does get, hurt my elbow, hurt my knee, they go right to her. What do we need to do? Can you wrap this up? Tell me what to do to stay healthy, to get back in the game, to not lose the season. And just overhearing some conversations between these high school kids and Alicia, it's amazing the rapport that she has built up and the trust factor and the confidence they have in her. It's just tremendous to see. What an asset.
Yeah, absolutely. And she gets kids to play more than they would if she wasn't there. And that's a very valuable resource. Before, you get hurt, and a lot of times it was you go to your primary care doctor and they'd say, okay, rest it for 2 weeks and then see where it is. This is her expertise, so she can look at it and say, okay, well, let's do these exercises. Let's do this. Let's not just rest, because she's up on the most modern forms of treatment and so forth, and says, no, we can play through this, or you know what, we can't play through this.
Is she funded through the school budget?
Yes. So she's contracted through Signature Healthcare. So we have a relationship with Signature Healthcare. But if we go back a little over a decade, we had no athletic training.
Yeah.
Then we were able to get it just for certain games. Then a lot of games, and then through our partnership with Signature Healthcare, we were able to get a part-time person who's here about 20 hours a week, and it's grown. And now she's full-time with us. Over the summer, she runs a strength and conditioning program. She continues to help with students with rehabbing and prehabbing to avoid injuries.
And she's a former Abington High School athlete, so she knows what it is for you want to play. And she also monitors any sort of concussion incidents. And you might see her in a game, especially like in a football game. If someone gets a hit to the head and she's concerned, she literally takes their helmet so that they can't go back in the game. And the kids respect that. They might be frustrated at the time, but she knows she's making the right decision.
Yeah, and she does a lot of work with our concussion management. So every student athlete who plays fills out a concussion history that she reviews, so she's aware of. And then she also makes sure that every one of our students takes a concussion baseline test. So if they do receive a concussion, it's not just how you feeling. There's actually a test that you can take where she can see how you scored, and in that test there's different categories where, okay, we're scoring lower here, so this is how we need to help you move forward. She manages the return to play to make sure that when they do get out there, they're doing so safely. It's not just, oh, you're feeling good, let's go. It's a minimum of 5 days, and it's a progression that it starts with just her. And then by day 5, assuming everything's going well, you're practicing, but she's watching you and checking in with you. So it's
And is she in communication with the parents at that level when you have?
yeah, so she communicates with parents, sometimes with students' doctors, specialists. She also meets with our school nurse daily and our guidance staff, particularly on concussions. These are where kids are at. If a kid gets hurt at the end of the day, she sends an email to usually the school nurse and the guidance counselor. So when the school nurse and the guidance counselor come in the next day, they know that, hey, this student's going to need some extra time to get to class. They're going to need to use the elevator, or they're going to need some extra support. So let's set that meeting up. So all of that stuff, it might be 9, 10 o'clock at night, and she's sending off emails. So when the school staff comes in the next day, they're in the best position to help the kids academically.
What she adds and offers to our school community as far as safety of kids is just amazing, and it's really kind of cool. You'll see some during the seasons. Sometimes there's someone else with her. Those are usually interns, college kids who are trying to get in this field, trying to learn from Alicia Reed, and she's great at teaching them too. Let's move on to things like end of the season stuff. There's always questions about senior night, banquets for each team, who picks All-Stars, who picks MVPs. Let's start with the banquets at the end. Different sports used to be one big banquet for everyone, and now each sport, I believe, has their own banquet.
Yeah, so years ago there was a fall banquet, a winter banquet, and a spring banquet, and a lot of the feedback we got was it was really long.
Yeah.
And
because every coach got up and spoke
every
about
coach
their
would
team
get up and speak, bring
handed
everybody
out awards.
Exactly, and the feedback from the vast majority of the people, some people certainly liked it. I don't want to discredit that, but it was too long of a night, and I'm hearing about kids that I don't know, and I don't care, and I want to hear about my kid, and coaches would say, I'd feel like I had to be short because we were already going to be here for 2.5 hours,
right?
So I couldn't expand on it. So we shifted to every sport does their own, and some teams want to rent a hall and do a big dinner and dress up, and that's great. And other teams want to get pizza and play wiffle ball, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So the coach works with the kids to come up with what they want to do, and all I ask is that there is some type of end of season banquet, but it doesn't really have to be a formal banquet, some type of end of season gathering to commemorate and reflect on the season and give out some certificates, some awards, and kind of wrap things up going forward. So each team gets to do that on their own, and ultimately the coach is responsible for that. The only thing the athletic department does is at the end of the school year, during senior week leading up to graduation, we have senior student athlete recognition night, and the Green Wave boosters sponsor that, and that's for any senior who's graduating who participated in athletics. They come, we reflect on the impact that athletics has had on their high school experience and how it's prepared them for the future. We give out about 20, 25 of our annual awards. We recognize team MVPs. We have a dinner, and that's kind of our big one. Not every kid gets an award, not every kid is recognized, but it's more of a celebration of the role athletics played in their high school experience.
So let's jump on that then. Who picks the MVP for each team, and who picks the South Shore League All-Stars for each team?
Yep, so the MVP is selected by the coach or the coaching staff of each team. They pick the MVP, and they submit it to me, and they get a plaque, and then the boosters usually gives them something at the end of the year. For South Shore League All-Stars, our coaches nominate All-Stars to the South Shore League, and then there's a postseason meeting where all of the coaches in the South Shore League
from all the other towns
review the nominations for each sport. So for soccer, all of the soccer coaches get together at school, and each coach has an opportunity to speak about their student athlete. These are some of the statistics. This was the impact on their team. And then there's a ballot, and they vote as they go, and there's a set number of All-Star spots available. And based off of how the coaches vote, that's how it's determined.
So that's the league All-Stars, is all the coaches in the league determine who those All-Stars are.
Yep, and then there are other all-scholastic opportunities from the various publications, and those are selected by those publications.
The Enterprise or Patriot Ledger.
The Enterprise, the Boston Herald, the Boston Globe. And they have their own process that they go through, and those vary year to year, and we obviously have no control over that.
So now at a somewhat a lower level, but related to this, team captains for each sport, how are they picked?
Yep, so team captains, each coach gets to determine their captain selection process, what makes sense for them. We don't want to, philosophically, we don't want to dictate how it's done because the coaches know their teams best. So some coaches do, the kids vote. Other coaches, it's a combination. Other coaches ask who wants to be a captain and explain why. and again, this is where I think it's great that our kids are experienced to different things. It kind of prepares them for the real world. When you have different jobs and you're working with different people, they do things a different way. So I ask our coaches, you need to have a process. Tell me what it is, and be able to explain it to your students and their parents, and then to go through the process to name the captains.
And there's an example, reflecting back to the MIA, where a captain could lose their captain status if they violate certain MIA rules, like
there's certain South Shore League rules too, if they were to violate, and there are certain league rules that if you were to violate the chemical health rule or the bona fide team member rule, you're not eligible to be an all-star in the South Shore League, and that's, again, people might interpret that as us dictating that, but it being a member of a league, if we are going to have an all-star team, then we're going to follow the rules so our students are eligible to be on those teams.
So let me ask you about the Student Athletic Advisory Council, SAAC. What is it? Who's involved with it? What does it do?
So that's a group of students that sometime in the fall season, so usually end of September, early October, there's an application process for any student athlete who's interested. They can apply, and usually it's a group of about 15 to 20 students that's representative of different grades and different teams. And they meet regularly with me. There's an executive board of usually 6 students that I meet with fairly regularly, and I get the executive board and the whole group's input on various ideas. What's going on? What do you need? Different things that kids ask for. Hey, we played our game in Norwell, and this was really cool. Can we do that here? Sure. How do we do that? Or why do we play this game on a Thursday? We don't want to. And I can explain that to them. So it's an opportunity for them to have their voice heard with the athletic department and for me to get ideas. It's also an opportunity for the kids, and it varies year to year, to promote themselves, to promote the student athletes. So they've come up with different ways. They've done different fundraisers and different community service events. So it gives the kids a voice in what we do. It's application-based. So usually we have about 30 kids apply, but in our experience, 30 is too many to be productive. So we try and narrow it down to a smaller group.
They've done some great things. They have the cancer fundraisers with Blackout for Cancer, where everyone shows up in a black shirt at a basketball game, whatever, different things like that. It's great to see some of these kids using some real ingenuity and kind of adding to the atmosphere at Abington High School. Yeah,
absolutely, and it's a great experience for the kids to be exposed to kind of some real world things. You know, there's a former executive board member of the SAAC who was also an intern in the athletic department who now works in the field of athletic administration. And, you know, a lot of the experience in talking with the former student, they reference the lessons that they learned. They were one of the students who started the Blackout Cancer and understanding, like coordinating all this stuff and schedules. And not everybody's happy. We've had students who were part of the SAAC and also an intern who managed, they wanted to start a social media account for SAAC, so they did that. And they quickly learned that not a lot of people are appreciative, and a lot of people are critical of what student ends up in the picture, the order that you publish pictures. And those students have gone on and managed, you know, at big-time schools, social media accounts for athletic teams at those, you know, schools and the Power 5 conferences. And some of the lessons that they learned here go there. So it's just a great opportunity to expose kids to a lot of what goes on in the athletic department.
It helps them mature, grow up, be responsible, and kind of get a little business sense. Pictures you just mentioned. So a lot of parents want to know, how can I get photos that were taken into games or video clips or whatever? There's a guy out there for Abington, Bill Marquardt. Let's talk about, how do they get photos?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate. Bill Marquardt is an Abington alum who's, say, recently retired, but it's been a few years now, and is one of his hobbies and passions is photography and sports, and he has been very, very good to us. He shows up tries to get to at least every team once or twice during a season based off of his schedule and our schedules, and he takes pictures, and he takes a lot of pictures. He takes them home, he edits them, and he posts them on his website, and they are professional quality, free for people to download. He is strictly a volunteer. You know, some of the teams certainly, you know, show his appreciation. They'll get him a sweatshirt or things, but he volunteers his time. It's a passion of his, and our kids and families are very fortunate that some of the, you know, the best moments of these kids' high school careers and memorable moments for the families, he's able to capture them and share them.
Some of the shots he gets are unbelievable, and you're right. You can put frames around them and put them up and bring it to your college dorm or whatever, or whether it's raising a championship banner at Boston Garden or at Gillette or just down at Memorial Field or in Abington High School. Bill, he's amazing. He volunteers his time all the time and just does great things for all the students, and they love him. They'll walk right up to him and say, "Thanks, Bill." And at the end of every game, they'll make sure they get a little team photo for that night. We're taping this at Abington's cable TV studio. It comes up to sometimes like, when are games live streamed? When are they replayed? Just make it clear, you don't have any say in that.
Well, we have a collaborative partnership for sure with Abington Cam, and I want to start with that. And I'm fortunate in my position. I get to work with a number of other communities on a daily basis, and I can without a doubt say that we are the envy of every other high school athletic department when it comes to our local cable access. People are just absolutely amazed at what we get in Abington, and I think sometimes in Abington, myself included, we kind of take it for granted, and we don't necessarily realize how good we have it. And we always want more, and we want more. And we're fortunate, typically here in the Abington Cable Studio, they're finding a way to do more and more and more. But it's a very small staff that they have here, and they do everything they can to film as many games as possible. On any given day on campus, we could have 4, 5, 6 events. We can't film everything.
Right.
But if there are just 2 games, like the other day there was a JV soccer game and a varsity soccer game, they were fortunate to get out there and film it. And they have a limited staff, and a lot of what they do is based off of student interns and volunteers and their availability. There's not a full-time army in here that can go out and film. But what's great about them is they're always willing to train people and bring new people on. So if there are games that people want to be filmed and it's not being filmed, Kevin Tocci at Abington Cam always says, well, we can use volunteers. So if people want something filmed that they just can't get to, volunteer.
Yeah.
That's most of what we do. I know you volunteer quite a bit of your time doing different things, and the same thing with commentary. How come some games have commentators and some don't? The commentators are volunteers. They take a passion in it and they take pride in it. Abington Cam does a great job of setting them up for success with the professionals, but they do a great job, and we've been fortunate. We have some overly qualified people working here, doing a great job for our kids.
Yeah, shout out to Kevin Tocci and Matt Lyons, who are behind the window over there taping this show, but also not only do they go to the games and tape them all, but then they have to bring it back and edit it, and then they have to download it, then they schedule it and put it back out, and then they go get the next game. A lot of work, but it's fun. And live streaming was great during COVID. It really helped out. We tried to continue as much of that, but it's sometimes difficult because sometimes you're relying on Wi-Fi at different locations, especially away locations, away games. But really comes into bodies. Do we have either enough interns and equipment? And we've been very fortunate where there's been more interns from Abington High School getting involved. You'll see some of the games, there's some kids running the cameras, and you also see there's some adults running the cameras. So no matter what age you are, Kevin Tocci and the crew can teach you. I started off as running cameras and just getting videos of kids, and then it becomes fun, and you really want to do more. I also want to talk more about just in general the boosters. Huddle cameras are also a camera system that we use to tape the games for the general public. Want to explain what a huddle camera is?
Yeah, so huddle is, and that's another thing that the staff at Abington Cam does for our coaches, is when they film games, they upload them to Huddle, Huddle is a database where our coaches can view film, cut up film, share it with kids. It's a whole nother thing we can get into. But Huddle also has some automated cameras. So there's a camera that's mounted in the gym that's hardwired to the internet and allows us to live stream fairly easily. So our sports that are played in the gym, volleyball, basketball, it's easier. We don't even need a person now to live stream, which is great. Out on the turf fields, we don't have access to the internet, so we have to use hotspots and so forth. So it's not hardwired, so it requires more people, more equipment, and so forth. But Huddle also, as part of our subscription, we do have some automated cameras now that follow the action outside. So they're newer, so we're working through some of the kinks and so forth. But that's part of our Huddle subscription packages, the cameras, the storage, all of that stuff. And we're very fortunate here that Abington Cam and the Green Wave Boosters split that bill. And it's not a small bill, but it's a great resource for our kids, our coaches, and also our community. And because of Abington Cam's commitment to our student athletes and the Green Wave Boosters, we're fortunate that you can watch more games in different forms, and our coaches can use it as a teaching tool as well.
And I want to say to the folks at home, the boosters are critical to the success of Abington High School sports. They've been around for a long time, and they do so much behind the scenes, like paying for the huddle cameras or paying for a portion of it. Those prices are going up. So the boosters are trying to expand and hopefully boost their fundraising. They also buy equipment when needed, some safety equipment, or invest in some whatever improvements they can make to our different athletic programs. When they do the annual door-to-door drive, that's the #1 fundraiser for the Green Wave Boosters. So whatever that day is going to be, the door-to-door drive, circle it. If a kid knocks at your door, please give them $5, $20. And if you're not home, they'll leave an envelope where you can drop a check or some cash and mail it into the boosters. It's every little bit helps, and this community has been very generous and supportive of the boosters, I think, because they see what the great things that they do. But another thing you can do is join the boosters. You just go to one of their meetings. They usually meet like Tuesday nights. They publicize it also. You can go to a meeting. Don't have to, know anything about any particular sport, but they're always just great people there, very welcoming people. They talk about different things coming up, whether it be a fundraiser or how can we do something better or an issue that they want to help try to resolve. The Greenway Boosters is a great place to meet people, to get involved. And you may just say, hey, I'll help flipping burgers or selling sodas. Or you may say, there's all sorts of different things you can do. I'll drive some of the kids around town during the door-to-door drive. But I can't stress how critical and how much we appreciate the Greenway Boosters, and I know that is also coming right out of the Abington Athletic Department, who you work with them all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. They're outstanding. And again, just like the cable company, our Green Wave Boosters is the envy of a lot of schools as to how they operate and how they work together as a cohesive unit. And it's not, in a lot of other towns, from what I understand, it's pretty divisive about, this sport gets this sport gets that. And our boosters they support all of our student athletes collaboratively together. And it's really an outstanding group of people. I enjoy going to their meetings once a month. They're less than an hour, usually closer to a half hour. They just talk about what's going on and what they can do to help our student athletes. And it's just an outstanding group.
Well, Peter, I know you didn't ask every question that's out there. I tried to go over as many things that I was alerted to and things that you had mentioned to me. If people have more questions, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say ask the question. If something doesn't seem right, you're not sure about something, or you just like that doesn't make sense to me, ask. I'm more than happy to answer the question. Like I said at the beginning, my big thing is you don't have to agree with everything, but I want you to know the why behind everything. Every decision we make, there's a reason. And please reach out. The absolute best way to get me is through email. So Peter Serino at abingtonps.org. You can email me. Usually 24 to 48 hours, you'll get some type of response. That's the best way to get me. You can try calling the office line, but I'm in and out of the office. I'm on field, so I don't get those as quickly as email. But shoot me an email, ask me the question, and follow up. As Shawn mentioned, there's a lot of other questions we have for this that we just didn't get to. So if there are questions that you have, if you found this helpful and there are other questions that you think we should address through this format, please shoot me an email, shoot Shawn an email, grab one of us at the game. We'll answer your question, but if you think it's a question a lot of people are asking, we can certainly hop on here and film another one of these.
Yeah, I'd be happy to have you on, Peter. You're always a wealth of information, and it's always I have a lot of pleasure, working with you, because I think there's a lot of people that are out there just like, how can we make memories out there at Abington High School for a lot of these kids? And yeah, we're talking about student athletes, but there's a lot of great things, the drama program, the music program, just a lot of the extracurricular activities, some of the clubs at Abington High School. Some of those places are, not necessarily always in the classroom where they make the memories, but a lot of people in this town, they remember how important some of those things were when they were kids, and they're trying to pay it forward. So if you want to join, again, the Greenway Boosters is a great way to do it. If you have questions, contact Peter Serino, or feel free to step up at any game and say thank you to Kevin Tocci or Matt Lyons, or any of the other volunteers you may see around there, because we all work together to try to make everyone welcome at Abington and all the games we have. And I think people from other towns come here and say, wow, these guys got something good going on, and we're pretty proud of that. So again, Peter, thanks for joining us today. Thank you at home for tuning in today. I hope we answered a lot of questions. But we will, we'll do another show if there's more questions to answer. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you out there in the playing fields and the courts and the turf. Hopefully out there really supporting our Green Wave athletes. Thanks for tuning in.